So let me start again and welcoming you. In better times, you would all be now situated in our wonderful auditorium at the Institute of Advanced Studies in Aarhus. The Institute of Advanced Studies in Aarhus, I'll just tell you 20 seconds about it. It's an interdisciplinary institute at the University of Aarhus. And we are roughly 50 researchers at the Institute from all different fields, from brain science to musicology, to Greek literature, to chemistry, to molecular biology. Everybody is in this institute working together and working on their own project. So this is a truly interdisciplinary institute. It's also an international institute in the sense that we have invited fellows from all over the world. We are 18 different nationalities at the institute. It's a curious institute, so it's driven by curiosity, and it's also an institute practicing what we call slow science. So the only thing our fellows have to do at our institute is basically to investigate and study and do research in the field that they are interested in. Then we like to do new ways of doing science, and new ways could also be interacting with people like Laila and Christina from Between Music, in terms of what is there at the borderline between science, technology, and art and music. So that's why we're here today. So we are very, very glad to sort of host this event here, online at least. And as Christina and Laila alluded to in the beginning, I have a background as a professor of chemistry, and I worked a little bit with liquid water over time. Just allow me 1 or 2 slides of why water for scientists is so important. I changed my slides too fast. So basically, we live in a world which is built by atoms and molecules. Roughly 2,500 years ago, there was a Greek philosopher called Democritus who suggested that maybe things are built from smaller things. And these very small things, let's call them atoms. And 2,000 years later, the Danish scientist Niels Bohr basically started formulating the theory of how atoms work. And nowadays we know a lot about atoms and molecules. Everything is made out of atoms. And our understanding of atoms and molecules is basically the foundation for this enormous wealth that we see nowadays. With also the negative implications of it, of course. And liquid water is fascinating because it's one of the simplest molecules you can think of. It's 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. And what I have spent my life on, and what most people here at the Department of Chemistry are working on, is basically to understand how things work based on molecules. It's not only here, but if we go elsewhere in the universe and look to see if there's anyone out there, we don't look for human beings, at least not until recently. We actually look for water. So whenever we travel the universe looking for people, is there anyone out there? Hello, is there anyone there? We basically look for water, because water is the molecule of life. We can only think of life as something that began in liquid water. Therefore, we look for life when we look for water. And this is some of the places we're looking. This is what it looks like after a supernova have exploded. And in this brown dust, maybe there is a symposium going on at the moment on music and water, because there are people like us out there. Very fascinating to think about water because it goes through our universe. And also all the weather we have is basically water. Everything on Earth is driven by the sun. That's where we get our energy from. But the way it's distributed over the globe is basically through water. So water is also responsible for all the weather and the temperatures and the wind and the climates and the snow we have at the moment. So water is also a very practical molecule here. And it's fascinating to think that our understanding of these very, very small red and white balls that I have here on the left side of the screen is basically the foundation for understanding these huge phenomena we have with hurricanes and whatnot. This is the famous Farina from 2004 over New Orleans. Basically molecules having fun with each other. with devastating consequences. My background is with light. I have always used light to study water, but of course, light and sound are not that different. It's waves, and they behave differently, and they behave similarly. You can see there's a rays of light. This is what we call a laser, and a laser is very familiar also in sound. If you ever have tried to take a microphone and hold it very close to a loudspeaker, you will experience feedback. You will have a high pitched note that is ringing loudly and very annoyingly. That's actually how a laser works. Here it's not a microphone and a loudspeaker, it's some light and atoms. So you can make feedback using light also, and that's how the laser was invented. So my background is in light, but I also enjoy sounds. And where I perhaps 5 minutes ago should have prepared for recording this Zoom thing, I was reading a paper, and very recent news actually that in the oceans, the amount of sound nowadays in the oceans is actually so loud, mainly from human sources, the Anthropocene ocean, that is beginning to disturb wildlife. So as much as I enjoy making music on the water and listening to it from this project, we also to some extent have to be careful that we're also a little more quiet in the ocean, so we can allow the fish to stay there and live there. So with that very short introduction and the delay, which I have to apologize, I will now give the word back to Christina, and thank you all for coming here to AIAS and being with us, and I look forward to a very exciting afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Søren. Thank you, and once again, thank you to AIAS for supporting this research. So before starting, I just quickly want to introduce the participants so you know who are who. And I also just have to tell you that we are filming this workshop, and that's why we also got a bit delayed, because we would like to share it on our YouTube channel afterwards, so people who didn't have the chance to join in today, they can get some of the interesting discussions that we're discussing today. So I'm going to start with Preston, who knows between music very well, and he's joining us from Austin today. If you just want to quickly say what you're working with, Preston.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for inviting me. I started working with Between Music several years ago, trying to help them get their performance ready that became the beautiful piece of art that we've seen. And my background is underwater acoustics for primarily using sonar in the ocean, but I'm also a musician, and I really wanted to be a rock star, but when that didn't work out, I became a professor. So it's great to get to mix the two together in this way.
Great, thank you, Preston. Then we have Magnus Walhberg from SDU here in Denmark, who is a professor in bioacoustics.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me. I'm studying animal sounds and animal hearing. I'm also, most of my projects are very slow, so I think I qualify for the approach here. And I will tell you later about how humans hear underwater.
Thank you, Magnus. Then we have Mark Johnson, who is an AIAS fellow and electrical engineer and bioacoustics specialist.
Yeah, I'm have been studying underwater sound in various forms for a long time, but I'm mostly interested at the moment in animal movement and feeding, and that ties into underwater sound because a lot of the animals that we're interested in are echolocators. And of course, they have to cope all the time with the problem of reverberation, which perhaps is giving them information, but is also giving them a lot of clutter when they're trying to find echoes from tiny little fish or whatever.
Thank you, Mark. And then another AIAS fellow is Sylvia Tesson, who's studying or a specialist in microorganism and water.
Hello. Yes, I'm working with aquatic and airborne microorganisms, and I'm looking at their dispersal, survival, and also interaction with their environment. And thank you for inviting me today.
Thank you. Then we have Angelo Farina who's joining us from Italy, who's a professor in applied acoustics.
Yes, good afternoon. Here we are working on many different topics, from archaeological acoustics to concert hall acoustics, musical acoustic, and also underwater. Underwater, we are mostly working about natural soundscape and the effect of noise pollution of marine life. Point is, we developed a very special technique employing not only measurement of sound pressure, but also measuring particle velocity. That is because many marine animals are not sensitive to pressure, but they sense the velocity. And we find that most studies being done nowadays are basically wrong, because they always measure only pressure, which is not what marine animals feel. So we developed this underwater ambisonics technology, which has two big points. One is measuring also the particle velocity vector component. So you get also information of the direction of sound. And we also are able to reproduce with 3D sound technology the feeling of the direction of sound coming from different directions. This is particularly relevant for your topic, because when you want to create 3D audio, spatial audio underwater, usually you fail, because human hearing is not suited to detecting the direction of sound underwater, because our ears are too close together compared to the wavelength. And so it does not work. With this underwater ambisonics technology, we reconstruct the directional information and make it possible to feel the direction of sound underwater. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Angelo. We look forward to diving more into that.
Yes.
Then we also have Gorm Vendelbo. I hope he joined as well, who is from a lead acoustician from Preston.
Yep, I'm here. Yes, I've been working at Reason for the last 12 years, 13 something. And I work primarily with the multi-beam systems. So this is sound used as a radar instead of perception, or what do you have? But before that, I worked with room acoustics for a brief time, and I worked with room simulation programs like Odeon. So I have also a kind of knowledge about air acoustics and room simulation. But primarily, I work with underwater acoustics and multi-beam systems. And yes, it's narrowband signals. This is one of the major problems I would see in this for you, would be that if you want to induce your own sounds underwater, you might have a problem with your devices or whatever. But let's hear what the experts mean about that.
Thank you, Gorm. Then we also have Bjorn joining us from the Netherlands. Bjorn has a 3D system called Astro Audio.
Yes, sorry. Yes, we have a system for 3D audio technologies. We work with multiple systems, not underwater, but on land, where we create immersive experiences with audio systems. So we have a strong focus on live applications for to get immersive experiences, 3D audio experiences.
Thank you, Bjorn. And also from the Netherlands, we have Chris de Jong, who is a professor in acoustics and sonar technology.
Hi, I'm not a professor, but I'm working at the Dutch research organization TNO in the departments of acoustics and sonar. And I've been working there for 35 years already, I think, working mainly in the field of underwater acoustics. For many years, I've worked mainly for naval applications, so looking into sonar and the sound of ships and how to build quiet ships. And since the past decade, I think, I've been working a lot on the effects of sound on marine life and how to model the environment that animals experience. So that's where I've got relevant backgrounds in this. And when I'm not working, I'm usually playing my clarinet. So which I've been playing for 50 years or so. So that's another passion of me. So this just comes nice together in this project.
Lovely, lovely. We're happy to have so many musicians with us as well. And last but not least, we also have Ralph Kessler from Germany, who is an audio engineer at the Master Pinguin.
Yes, do you hear me?
Yes.
Great, that's good. Yeah, thank you, Christian, for the invitation. I'm a R&D engineer who started in the 80s. And I designed the very first room simulator, one of the first units for a German brand called Quantec. So I dedicated my whole life in simulating natural acoustical stuff in a very high quality. That was always my target. And so in the 80s, we designed networks, and we used a lot of time in tuning the networks. I will talk about it later. And in the 90s, inspired by Angelo's theory of convolution reverb, which was the enemy of the algorithmic reverb, of course, because in studio, where I'm based in the studio acoustics and devices, digital reverberators used by musicians and artists. I tuned, for instance, reverb models for artists like Frank Zappa or Kate Bush in the 80s. And that was perceived as a very natural thing, but also as a very nice way to shape the music, because reverb is the dress of the music. Any musical note is forced to go through a room. Or this is the recording room, this is the playback room, a lot of rooms on the way from the initial note of the artist to the ear of the user. So I dedicated my whole life to give musicians and artists tools to shape their musical notes. So, and it's important also that what is the expectation of the user and stuff. But before going too much into detail, in the 90s, I studied a way how to capture the nature, because in the 80s we did it algorithmic, which is very complicated, to tune delay networks in a way that they sound natural. Only a few systems on Earth and a few people on Earth could do that. You have to spend years to tune it in a way that the user is happy. And it's, as you said, I think it was Laila who said it, that it doesn't feel right. So that's actually the point. We have to find a dress for the music which feels right, because we cannot get rid of the reverb. We have to live with it. So in pop music, we have tri recordings, and then comes a device which is called digital reverberator, and we had the artist had the complete flexibility. So that's what I did in the 90s, and now I'm here and have a library of maybe 100 or 200 very nice spaces, but not underwater. So I'm in this community, not the underwater guy. Actually, I had one underwater shot done, and I was so disappointed by it. I dropped the study. I saved my budget because it doesn't sound nice for me. It was a hydrophone from Brulonquier and very scientific equipment, which didn't felt well on music. When you know, and therefore I hired the underwater laboratory, and I was disappointed a bit. And yeah, I will tell you later more about it. That's basically my background. And I'm very happy to be here, that you invited me, and maybe I can help with my knowledge to find your reach to the goals. The immersive stuff is also very interesting. I have a laboratory for Auro 3D. I hold a patent for a format called Auromatic, Auro 3D, And I did the upmix algorithm in that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. That sounds all very, very interesting, and we look forward to go into this certainly, especially in the second part of this workshop.
Yes.
Last but not least, I just want to introduce also Roma, who is the sound engineer between music. So
yeah, hello everybody. It's a big pleasure to see so many wonderful people together. Yes, as Christina said, I'm working for Between Music as a sound engineer, and my background is just simply music. I'm playing music and I'm making sound for different musicians, and big pleasure to be a part of Aquasonic family and making this fantastic performance. And as Lila said also, yes, we are looking for some natural way to introduce the performance to playing music underwater, because artificial reverb, it can be really nice and beautiful, but people always asking question, does it sound like this underwater, or how does it sound? So these questions all the time coming out. So this is and it's kind of a bit kind of shame part of us, like, yeah, but you know, yeah, but we have to, because surprisingly, but it's sounding so dry underwater, at least in those tanks we have. So it's kind of yeah, for a long time listening, it's a little bit it can be a bit boring, but that's why we're doing this, and we are looking forward to hear your opinion on this and find some good solutions how we find a great underwater sounding reverb. And a bit later I will show I'll tell a little bit about our results, how far we went, and trying to find out how can we do it even better. Thank you.
Great, Roma. Okay, and I also just want to say that we will have hopefully Niels Christian Hansen, who is AIAS fellow in neuroscience and music, joining us later, hopefully for the last part. So, but with that said, I would like that we start the first discussion on, let's say, how we define which are the best water environments to find, let's say, a varied sample library of these underwater reverbs. And to kick off this discussion, we have asked Preston to do a small introduction to the underwater acoustics worlds, and then hopefully from there we can dive more into this and understand where we can find both the longest reverb, the widest frequency range, and also some of the best echoes. So I give the word to you, Preston.